Perfect, perfect. We are live. Welcome, welcome. Hello to everybody. So, thanks for everybody for jumping in. Whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. And wanted to introduce my guest, Taylor. Taylor's somebody whom I met through the Sub Two group and also in the Project Forward, and I had met with him. Was actually looking to have somebody on his podcast, did a great interview, but then automatically I realized that, hey, I actually like this guy. So he was really, really cool guy, really had some great insight. We are both licensed, and we have that in common, also doing some investment stuff. So really got to click it off
Mm.
and had some great conversations. So I had to have him back on my podcast to really talk about and dive deep into some other things. So everybody, welcome Taylor. Thank you so much for being here. Taylor, yeah, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little intro about you and who you are and what brought you here to this point.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the introduction. I'm glad that you actually like me, and so appreciate you having me on. Um, yeah, keeping it short, a little bit about me. I grew up in Northeast South Dakota, and when I was growing up, I didn't ever really want to go to college because I wanted to ride snowmobile all day, every day. You only get to do that a few months out of the year. Um,
Sweet.
I I I did make it riding professionally. I was sponsored by several different companies riding every day down in West Yellowstone, Montana. Realized a couple things after doing that for a few years. One, it was never going to really pay the bills and raise a family. And and I just didn't love it as much as I did. It needed to stay more of a hobby for me rather than a job. Just with for several different reasons, I was like, this has to maintain a hobby for me, or my biggest passion I'm going to lose. And a book that I had read, it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. One
A
of the
fantastic book. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the concepts that's in that book said to get a job for what you learn, not what you earn. And I'm going to let you hang on that as I shut off this fan here.
Sure.
Heard all the background noise. So get a job for what you learn, not what you earn. And when some things changed in the snowmobiling industry for me, I realized that I had a choice to make. I know that this isn't what I'm going to do as a career. I need to do something else. Rich Dad Poor Dad also taught me all of the opportunity that comes from real estate investing. And I thought,
Hmm.
what better way to learn real estate than actively doing it? So I didn't know anybody. I got licensed in the state of Montana. I moved here and started knocking on doors to build relationships, and one thing
Wow.
led to another, and I've done some pretty decent production, got to learn a lot and help a lot of people along the way.
That's really cool and good for you on getting started, getting out there and doing the hard things when it comes to building up your client. I remember when I also first started in real estate, I was not
Hmm.
from Orlando. I'm originally from New York, and
Okay.
coming down here and same thing where we had to just do some of the hard things. I didn't have that database here around me. So kudos to you
Yeah.
because real estate is a tough industry, and unless you're proactive and you get out there and do something, you won't make it. So kudos to you for
Yeah.
getting out there and making something happen. Something I didn't notice before when we had jumped into a Zoom, or sorry, into a podcast is all
Yeah.
those bold plaques you got back there, man. I can't tell you, I must have been through bold myself.
Yeah.
I'm like 5, 6 times I've been through bold myself. So good
Okay.
for you.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. Business Objective Life by Design.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Keller Williams class for people who aren't familiar with it, but it teaches you just basically how to be a better, more productive agent, and it's helped me both in my professional and my personal life.
Yep.
So it's cool that you knew what that was.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've been through it quite a few times myself. So let me ask you, as somebody who is licensed, but also in the investing world as well, because we actually met in through the investing world, not necessarily as us
Yeah.
being licensed agents. Um, what's it like balancing those two hats, and how do you kind of be purposeful in both realms?
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many different nuances that we could dive into within that.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
and part of it, I think, comes down to the agent's goals. And so I'll answer it kind of subjectively for me, and then a couple things that are in general. So
Yeah.
subjectively for me, like I'd mentioned, the whole reason that I got into real estate was to learn so I can become a real estate investor.
Hmm.
And I think the
Hmm.
advantage that it's given me, and my clients, is that I feel so many real estate agents think of real estate in this little tiny box of here's how things work. And you know
Yep.
from being in the sub two community that it's endless, all the
Hmm.
different ways that you can structure deals and negotiate terms and all of that. And I've been
Yep.
able to help my clients see opportunities that other people didn't see, know how to structure things that other people maybe not would have been able to get to the closing table, etc. So
Yeah.
for me balancing it, if we're looking at more of the negative light, my personal real estate investing goals, it hasn't really hindered me much like it maybe would in a cheaper market. Bozeman
Hmm.
is a very expensive market. Our median home price is 750,000 to
Whoa.
$800,000 depending on the month. Yeah.
Whoa.
So like, I mean, bigger pockets, right, is a thing, is a one of the OGs in the real estate investing place, and you put 20% down on a property and you're going to cash flow 400 bucks a month at, 10-12% cash on cash. That doesn't
Yeah.
work in a market when your median home price is all the way up here. So for me, and getting rolling, I had to start in a different way in how I acquired property, which was by finding a distressed property that was on the market, was even in multiple offers, and then getting into house hacking. So without going into some of the specifics, I would say
Amazing.
it's helped me balance. Like, I've got commission savings, a bunch of knowledge, and
Yep.
then you could get into legalities of representation and things like that if we want to dive into any more of that. I think maybe more of a specific question would help me give a better answer for you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean to highlight, and I remember we talked about that in the last call about that median price point. And that is such a
Mm,
tough market to break into especially in that price point and having a property make investment sense. So I think that's amazing that going the house hacking route, which again, maybe not most people wouldn't think about that, or maybe the
mhm.
traditional agent may just think of what you said, 20% down, look for, some returns on it, hopefully you're getting a whatever 10-12% cash on cash return, and
Yeah.
you can't do anything until you get 20% down. I can't tell you, how many times, and before I knew and understood investing as well, how many times people would come to me and say, well, I want to invest in real estate. Okay, how much money do you have? And they'd have, maybe 10-5% down or whatever it is. And essentially, in my mind, there was nothing that could happen there until I learned more about the
Yeah.
investing side to realize that something else could be done there, and there's another path that we could take. So that's definitely
Mhm.
where that plays in. So let me ask you this as well. Where do you stand along the lines about, the pros and cons of having a license in real estate? Whether it's
Yeah.
and being and this is from the real estate agents, sorry, the real estate investors perspective. What are some of the
Yeah.
pros and cons there? And I can kind of share some as well on my end that I've
Yeah.
personally experienced as well. But I'd love to hear
Yep.
yours.
Yeah, I'd love to, yeah, go banter this with you. So, one of the biggest pros, and you especially hear, like developers will have their wife get into the industry so they can save on commission. And so that's been
Hmm.
one of the things for me is I've got three doors in my portfolio. I've got a single family
Amazing.
home, the one that I house hacked, and then I've got a duplex on some property that I'm able to continue developing. And I didn't necessarily have the disposable income for a down payment on $800,000. But when I got my commission from that allowed me to go to the closing table for like $1 or $2,000 out of my pocket. So the commission savings is probably one of the biggest ones. If you want to
Yes.
take the route of buying a property, living there for a while, doing some updays, renting it out, buying another property, right? And just kind of stacking your doors in a portfolio that way. That's
Yep.
been a huge thing for me, when I'm approaching it from the investor standpoint, is saving and making all of that money on commission.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of agents may not realize that you can wrap your commission back into towards a down payment and putting it in there. So that's
Mhm.
definitely a huge one. Yeah, that's definitely one that I've seen as well. Though I typically, for my personal business, I don't really buy too much off of the MLS. So,
Yeah.
we're a lot of direct to seller with our stuff.
Yep.
So not so
Yep.
much for me, but one thing that is big for me and being direct to seller is the credibility of having a license. And
Hmm.
a lot of sellers respect that because there's a lot of fly by night wholesalers, investors, and maybe the not the most upfront about the full process with people, and we've
Yeah.
talked about that before. But one
Yeah.
of the things really helps to for me to have a certain notoriety above the competition is the fact that I'm licensed, and you can
Yep.
look up my license and see that I do hold an active license. There are no complaints or anything against my license, and I'm good to do
Yeah.
business. So,
Absolutely. Well, and diving into that, like direct to seller, that brings up another point. On the investment side, is that my full-time job or career is being a real estate agent, representing people. A big part of that, if you know Keller Williams, and really any
mhm,
business, one of the main things you have to do is lead generate. And so
mhm,
I'm networking everywhere I go with people who aren't licensed, just to continue to build my database and really build relationships. This is a relationship business. So just building relationships. So I've got to build relationships with a lot of people to identify off-market opportunities. I
yep,
also get to build relationships with all of these real estate agents. And there's a lot of real estate agents, whether they're developing, have allowed me, opened up doors for some nonprofits that I work with, or real estate agents that will send an off-market deal or a deal that's been sitting on the MLS for a long time because they know that I'm working with investors. And so
yep,
just being in the world of where real estate is exchanging hands, you're able to see and find a lot of cool opportunities that you wouldn't have been able to had you not been working in the local market each and every day.
yeah, yeah. No, that's solid. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Um, okay, so pushing forward a little bit here, I want to ask you this as well. Is
Yeah.
as somebody who's coming in as an investor, and actually, let me back up a little bit. Let me back up a little bit because I want to talk
Yep.
about also because I believe there are some cons to
Yeah.
investing and having a license as well. So, and I didn't cover that. And first off, is there anything that comes up top of mind for you when you think of what are some of the negatives when it comes to holding a license and being an investor and trying to invest in real estate?
Yeah. Well, if you're looking to be like just an investor, you don't want to be full time and in the industry representing people who are buying and selling. There's just going to
Hmm.
be some more associated time and cost to maintain your status as a licensed professional in the state. So you
Yep.
have to do your continuing education. I sat through one of the most boring classes yesterday trying to, or not, you know what I'm talking about, but
Oh
just
yeah.
checking the box on stuff that isn't really helping me provide excellent service to my clients, but I
Oh yeah.
have to do it to maintain my license status. And then of
Yep.
course there's, I have to be maintain part of my Gallatin Association of Realtors and my local MLS, which is a pro. We'll come back to that. But maintaining to Gallatin Association, the Montana Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, there's dues that come with all of that. And then on
Yep.
my transactions, there's errors and emissions insurance. And so there's thousands of dollars and time that comes along with maintaining your real estate license, to where if I
Yep.
wasn't licensed, I could take all that time and put it into income producing activities. Because sitting in a continuing ed class, there are some good ones out there that I have learned and implemented, but more times
Hmm.
than not, I'm spending things, just checking the box rather than advancing my business to help me get towards my goals.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And a con for me that I see on the direct to seller side that I've come across,
Yeah.
because we have all kinds of well, one, it's not really a con, but one, there is making sure that I have to have certain disclosures in my paperwork and everything. It's not
Yep.
necessarily it's a con, but I have to be secure about that because technically I'm considered an educated party against somebody
Yep.
who may not be educated in real estate. So there's that. But the only
Mhm.
real con that I can see, and this is even if you really want to consider it one, that I personally come across is, with us having all
Yeah.
kinds of marketing out there, and a lot of times sellers will reach back out to us, and they'll come from wherever, whatever piece of marketing they touch, whether it's an online
Yeah.
ad or whatever. And as soon as, and we'll get on the phone with them, and we'll start going through the whole questions that we have, and discovering what their true situation is. But as soon as they
Yeah.
mention to us real estate agent, we have to back off. And
Yep.
has that have we been able to not do some deals because of that? Yeah, absolutely. Because,
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell this seller to cancel with your agent, then call me back. I don't believe in being
That's
that
a
guy.
lawsuit. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe in being that guy. But what I have to do is I have to leave the phone. I have to tell them, hey, what's the number to your agent? I have to contact your agent and go about this.
Yep.
And typically, that may be a little bit harder to push through, maybe sometimes a creative deal through an agent who just doesn't know. And
Yeah.
now I can't technically do that deal because I'm holding a license, and I can't cross that border of, they don't they're listed within somebody else versus, somebody, an investor who may not have a license. They can cross that border. Now again,
Yep.
that can go, it can go
Yeah.
two ways with that either way. But that is the one thing that I have seen, that we've lost deals because we've been licensed.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of legalities that will come along with that. And that sparked another one for me too, is like the perceived conflict of interest. So I think that there's
Mhm.
two ends of it where if I'm going and having a conversation with the client, some people just, I don't want to work with a real estate agent, all of that.
Oh yeah.
In that
Oh
case,
yeah.
I'd be like, well, I don't have to exercise my license. Like I don't have to take a commission. I don't have to do this or that. So assuming you can overcome that, the other place it could come from is if you're representing buyers. I don't know about you and your business practice, but when a buyer selects to work with me and the buyer success program that I have put together for all of my clients, they're signing an exclusive right to work with me and vice versa. If,
Yep.
I give 100% commitment to my clients, and so it's only fair that they do the same, assuming
Yep.
it's a win-win. But let's say I know what checks Desmond's boxes and what you're looking for, and then I'm doing my investment activity and I stumble upon a great investment opportunity for me that also checks your boxes, right?
Mm,
Now you
yep.
could get into the conflict of interest
Yes.
scenario. And so I thankfully I've not had that come across my plate yet. Which is why I just think it's important if and when I'm looking for opportunities, if they're similar, I can be like, hey, we can cross this bridge when we come to it, or I can refer you to another partner of mine, who will continue to take good care of you. But I
Yeah.
don't want to, break that trust with you just because I am actively looking to acquire real estate as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a little bit of the conflict of interest, or could be that conflict of interest too, where somebody could press you and bring you to court for that if you played
Hmm.
that out.
Yeah, no, that's actually one that I never thought of. And because in my business, like I said, I don't service buyers directly, I never thought
Mhm.
about that. But you raise a very good point to where, yeah, that could be considered a conflict of interest. And there's certain things as realtors that we have to abide by, and operating, with integrity, transparency, and
Yep.
acting in the best interest, depending on the representation we have with that client, acting within their best interest, which could
Yep.
mean that that could limit the properties. If we're truly acting in their best interest, we have to pass an opportunity that may be a great fit for us over to them. So
Yep.
that's actually a really, really good point that I didn't even think about. Another pro as well, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but you said we're
Yep.
going to come back to it, which in reference to pretty much like the MLS and data and everything.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and I mean, I don't know about Florida, but here in Montana, for example, we're a non-disclosure state. So
Hmm.
sales data is not disclosed to the public. And so, for example, I'm working with another gentleman who's also part of the Sub 2 community, does a lot of deals all over the US, and is also local here to Bozeman, and was wanting some data from me recently that I could give him a portion of what he's looking for, but I can't disclose everything. Otherwise, I'm stepping outside of what I, can do with my license, which is kind of a bummer because he's a friend and I want to help him. At the
Yeah.
same time, we're a
Yep.
non-disclosure state, so I have to abide by the rules, even if some agents in other non-disclosure states aren't playing by the rules for them. I just know that I do take this seriously and have to
Yeah.
play everything clean. And so that's one of the bummers, as well as I can't just share freely. But I see so many opportunities that come across the MLS. When I see something, I can underwrite it way quicker than needing to rely on someone else to get me all the data. It just allows some speed to all of the different things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
How's it that you use it?
So, very similar, except for and so I want to understand what you when you say non-disclosure state, because for instance, in Florida here, yes, I could find the data on the MLS, but I could always go to a Redfin, a Zillow, or even
Mhm.
or public records if I really want to go that deep and really find those prices. So, or those comps and everything that I'm looking for. So that's still a possibility here in Florida, although you're
Yeah.
still having to go about a roundabout way and sometimes it's not the most accurate of data. There is some data set, but so you're telling me where you're
Yep.
at that doesn't even exist, you can't even get that.
Yeah, exactly. In Montana being a non-disclosure state, if I sell you a property for $100,000, it's nobody's business. Real estate agents and people with MLS access can see it, but it's
Yeah.
not public data. Now, where that's a
Wow.
benefit is for property taxes. So when I'm at the closing table with clients, I let them know that, hey, Desmond, over the course of the next few weeks, you're going to be getting a ton of mail, even from the Department of Revenue and all this official looking stuff asking you what did you pay for the property? What finishes does it have? All that. And the best place for it is to rip it up and put it in the trash because it's no one's business. And then I always joke that if you do want to just pay more in taxes, you can just support me in some of my hobbies, but keep that for yourself. You don't need to give it to Uncle Sam.
Holy smokes. I didn't realize that. And I thank you for breaking that down about, non-disclosure versus disclosure state because I'm so used to Florida and even, the Southeast United States and those pocket of states back there where we were doing
Yeah.
deals, I was always able to find that sales data. And I never,
Yep.
knew that some of these states that they don't even disclose it in public records.
Nope, not at all. It's MLS only. So you're not going to find it anywhere.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Yeah, that's a really big
Mm.
one. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this as well. You know, there's a plethora of reasons why maybe a traditional buyer and seller may want to work with you. I mean, you're a handsome guy. You're funny. You have a great backdrop. You've been to Bold a few times, so there's a plethora of reasons why the traditional buyer or seller may decide they want to work with you. Let me ask you this, from an investor's standpoint, and you having the knowledge of being on the investor side, why would an investor choose to work with an agent like you?
Yeah, good question. So, uh, first, thank you for stroking my ego. My wife would tell you I probably don't need that too much, but for working with an investor, I speak the language. So
Yeah.
there's so many colleagues within the industry that are licensed that when I start talking about cash on cash return or even cap rate, people are like, it's this cap, it's a great deal. Well,
Hmm.
great deal for who? Because by the time you put any leverage on it, like it doesn't calculate. So I always laugh
Yeah.
when agents post great investment opportunity. Well, if it was really that amazing, why aren't you investing into it? Right? Or why
Hmm.
don't you have it sold to one of your friends? Well, it might not be that good. Um, so I just speak the language. So I understand that the different ways that you make money in real estate is you're going to get that equity pay down from your tenants. The difference between your debt service and the money you're bringing in from rent with revenue is called cash flow. I understand that they might want to depreciate it and then bifurcate the property into the land and the value that's added and things that are built onto the property. So I have a deeper understanding of when I'm looking at something, I can see all of the different opportunity that a property can provide and be able to look at things quicker and get it to the investor in a faster matter of time. Or
Sweet.
on the flip side, if it's not a seasoned investor, I have for example, I have one of my best, not best, I have a lot of different clients, but a gal that I've worked with several times, she has a wonderful job in the Midwest and has bought several properties here with me because they need a place to park some of their extra money to relieve the taxes. And so I'm able to look and find opportunities for them that it might not cash flow quite as much, but if even though if it's a little barely negative, it's basically breaking even for what their goals are over the long term. I'm able to help them come up with a plan on how they can leverage real estate and all of those benefits to put their money instead of having to put it in the stock market, because we know how well that's been doing over the last few years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would just say speaking the language and knowing how to look at and interpret what you might be looking for as an investor is how I can best help.
Very cool. Absolutely agreed. And yes, and that's a lot of the benefits why some investors chose to work with me as well here in my area. So
Mhm.
cool. So we are getting ready to wrap up here. Actually, and this is something new for me. I actually have three hot seat questions that I want to start asking people.
Okay.
And these are not necessarily going to be about real estate in general or real estate, but it's going to be some interesting questions. I'm interested to hear people's responses,
Yeah.
and you're going to be the first person I'm going to try these on. So
Oh boy.
a couple hot seat questions, three hot seat questions. One, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be, and why would you choose that person?
That's a really good question. Um, for the people who coach me in some different things, I'm very quick to answer. So if it stumps me, I'm like, that was a good question. That one got me. Um, any person throughout history, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Tim Tebow. I think I look up to him a lot. We're
Yeah.
both Christians, men of faith, and
Yes.
I've watched him over the course of growing up succeed in athletics at a very high level to completely shift what he's doing and still doing things at a very high level and helping what he calls the MVPs, the world's most vulnerable people, and working alongside some people who are big in the entrepreneurial space like Ed Milet, Pete Vargas, and others. So I
Mhm.
really appreciate how he's given up the fame and athletics and all of that to shift and use what he's been gifted in to help some of the world's most vulnerable people. I'd love to have a good conversation with Tim.
That's awesome. Great answer. Super solid answer. Perfect. Number two, and actually, you kind of surprised me at the beginning of the interview with this. So, but I want to know if there's anything else. What's a hobby or interest that you had that may surprise people listening?
Yeah, well, I already put out there that I was a pro snowmobiler for 4 years. So
Yeah,
I'll just
that,
keep
that was
I'll keep it at that. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest and never would have guessed that I would have got to ride every day all day in the backcountry in Montana, being a kid, growing up where it's surrounded by cornfields and getting to be sponsored by companies like FXR and Backcountry Access and several others. I've had some amazing experiences and sketchy ones in the backcountry throughout my life.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Awesome. And last question as we're wrapping up. If you could have one superpower for the day, what would yours be?
I hate when people ask this question, but I think it would be so cool to be able to read or control minds. There's
That's
some
mine. That's
geopolitical
mine too.
yeah, reading minds, and people are like, well, what if you could fly or you could have all the money or be invisible? It's like, yeah, cool, but if you want to make a real impact and some real change, there's some things going on in the world where if I could go control their mind and to make a little bit of a different decision, I think I could help a lot more people a lot more effectively and quickly than uh, than that. So mine would definitely be mind control, but you got to keep that
Awesome.
out of the hands of the wrong people.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's a balance with that one because that's my answer too, actually. And
Okay.
you're the first time I've heard somebody give me that answer back. When people ask me that
Yeah.
question, that's my answer, hands down. But very cool,
100%.
awesome. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for taking some time here to spend with me. Always a pleasure getting to chat it up with you. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. How can somebody get a hold of you, if they want to, buy, sell real estate, invest in real estate in your area?
Yeah.
What does getting a hold of you look like?
Yeah. So if you're anywhere here looking to do stuff here in Montana, you can find me at all on social media at 406 TMAC is my Instagram handle. But then you can also find me online. I'm with the Harris Group, which is the H right behind me, the Harris Group at Keller Williams here in Bozeman. And so if you just Google Taylor McLaughlin Realtor Bozeman, you'll be able to find me there. Yeah, whether you're a first time home buyer looking to step into it for the first time, or you're looking for a multifamily complex or development opportunity, I've got some opportunities no matter what you might be looking to do to help you achieve the real estate goals that you have.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you so much, Taylor, again. And until next time, I'm sure we will at some point in time jump on this again and
Oh, yeah.
have some more conversations, chop it up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Desmond. I appreciate you, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Sounds good, brother. All right.